Welcome in, folks, to a special video here on the World of Football channel. I'm your host, Randy Snow. We've been following quite a few leagues this spring and summer, and there's one in particular, that we have kept an eye on, but we haven't really dedicated a video to yet until today. We'll be discussing the Indoor Football League as they just wrapped up their 2024 regular season and are now about to begin their playoffs this coming weekend. I am joined by my son, Adam.
Hey, how you doing? I'm very excited to talk about Indoor Football League. I know we've been talking a lot of arena football, but indoor football's out there too, and it's time to give it some love here.
All right, and we are pleased to welcome someone who's been covering the Indoor Football League all season long and is here to help us catch up on the wonderful league that the IFL is. Welcome to the show, Trey from Off the Wall.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the invite. I've been a fan of what you guys have been doing in World of Football for a while. So when Adam reached out, I was like, yes, I made it. I'm getting called up to the big leagues. Let's go. So I really appreciate it. I'm humbled.
Well, we're glad you said yes. Obviously, we talked kind of before we hit go on the with the mics and everything that your Twitter account, your X account, is very, very active, and you cover a lot of stuff between arena football, indoor, in the indoor league. And I'm just like, I don't know how this guy does it, but he is just on top of everything. And that's the dude I want us to talk with in order to catch up on this league. Because, we've been focused on arena football. We kept our eye on the score in the league of the Indoor Football League. But you hopefully have all the nooks and crannies, covered so we can, better understand what we've missed this season. Because I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah, I know more than I care to admit, honestly, about this league. Of all the games, I think I've probably watched 85-90% of the games the IFL's played this year, and I'm like, man, should I be saying that out loud? That's the reality. That's the fact. I love the IFL, and I love what they've been doing.
Okay, very good. All right, before we dive into the IFL, we want to start out with finding out something about you, Trey. How long have you been a fan of indoor and arena football?
Yeah, so my fandom with arena football goes back to the late 90s. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and I was a big Orlando Predators fan. Me and my dad had season tickets, and we'd go in the late 90s to early 2000s, talking the Jay Gruden era, the Joe Hamilton, Corey Fleming, Barry Wagner, Kenny McIntyre, like all these legends of the game were playing for the Predators during this span of time. And I know you guys are big throwback jersey guys, so I have my Predators jersey from way back when.
Very nice.
A little Joe Hamilton action. So I wanted to bust that out of the closet and show you guys I'm legit. I'm the real deal around here. But yeah, my father and I would go to Orlando Predators games a ton at the old Amway Arena, and it was just a blast. And I fell out of it in the late 2000s, like right around when the league declared bankruptcy and had all their first run of issues around 2009, 2010, around there. So I went to college around that time. I was doing things, that people in their early 20s doing the whole college thing. Wasn't really paying much mind to the arena and indoor game. But recently, in February of 2023, I saw the rumblings of the AFL might be coming back. I'm like, okay, go on. I'm listening. And it was announced that it was happening. I'm like, okay, I remember the AFL. I loved going to the AFL. So I went and Arena Football TV, I think the account is called, on YouTube, where they have all the old 90s and 2000s games. I started watching some of those, and I'm like, oh, I'm back. I'm all the way back in, whether I know it or not. I'm back. And so that led me to finding out about the IFL and really falling in love with what they do there. I've been watching a ton of their games over the past 2 years, and then when the AFL came back this year, it made sense. I was like, all right, well, I'm already up to my neck in the IFL. Might as well do some stuff with the AFL too. So it's been a blast kind of getting in the mix with some of these things. And in terms of creating Off the Wall itself, I've always had a creative itch, but I've had a bit trouble finding that subject, right? Or that outlet that really fired me up and allowed me to exercise that creativity. And I kind of took a look at the arena and indoor football landscape, and I saw that opportunity to get involved and become a part of this niche community. And like I said, World of Football was one of the first shows that I came across that would discuss arena and indoor football. And so in a way, you guys helped me craft what Off the Wall is now, and just kind of been molding it over the past 3, 4, 5 months. And I sat down and thought to myself, what would I want to hear if I was listening to a podcast about arena football?
Mhm.
Whatever that answer was, that's my goal, to make that. So it's been a blast, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can keep this thing going.
Do you have a favorite IFL team?
I try not to play favorites because I'm trying to be down the line, not a journalist, but I'm covering the game. But there have been some teams this year where every time I tune in, I'm like, man, these guys are just a ton of fun. Like San Diego Strike Force, every game I watch of theirs, they're like, oh, this is a fun team. Like they're just a great team. And San Antonio Gunslingers, they're a team where I'm like, okay, they're about to give up 60 and score 60. Buckle up. We're in for a ride. So there's been some teams that ebb and flow throughout the season, but yeah, I try not to play favorites because I'm trying to be the guy that people can go to for some of that IFL information without too much of a bias.
We understand the feeling of trying to be impartial, but we gave that up a long time ago. We
Yeah.
are fans first. We're fans first,
Right.
And we're pseudo journalists after that. So we have teams we love, teams we don't like, and whatnot.
Yeah.
But have you been to any IFL games in the last year or so?
I have not. That's a tricky thing with the IFL where I live. So I live in Tennessee, like I told you guys, and there's no IFL teams in any direction for hours. I think the closest one might be Indianapolis next year when Fisher's Freight comes in.
Right.
So they might be the closest one to me, and that's a solid 6.5, 7 hours from where I am. So it's tough because I had some opportunities to go to some AFL over the past year, but IFL, I got to be really intentional with my efforts to make it out to a game, and I definitely want to next year.
Hey, I'm going to throw this out there. I mean, that's like what, a 5-6 hour drive for us as well from Kalamazoo, Michigan. So hey, maybe we all need to hit up a freight game next season.
It sounds like it.
Just gonna throw it out there.
All right.
Just gonna put that one out there, fellas.
Adam, that's only like a 3-hour drive for us. It's not even
Is it
that
3
far.
hours? See, I'm terrible with distance.
That's
You're
even
the
better.
driver. I just sit in the passenger seat and make fun of your driving. That's all I do.
Yeah. No, it's about 3 hours. We went to an Indianapolis Colts game a few years ago, and it was about 3 hours. And I was shocked that it was that close to us.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I thought it was just a little more. But hey, I mean, I was also trying to make him feel good. Like, hey, we can meet somewhere in the middle. Now we have a shorter drive for him, Dad. Thanks. Way to ruin that.
Yeah.
Well, if Adam's driving, it'd probably be 2.5 hours. But for me, it's a 3-hour drive.
Okay. So the 2024 IFL regular season has come to an end this past weekend. After 19 weeks, how would you sum up how the season went for the IFL?
I'd say the first word that comes to mind is stable. And I don't have to tell you guys how volatile the arena football world can be and has been over the past 6 months, 12 years, like you name it, especially with everything going on with the AFL in particular. But having something be stable in the arena landscape was nice to have. It was nice to be able to lean on, like, all right, these games got canceled, but we got the IFL tomorrow. We got that going for us. So it was nice to be able to lean on something. And another word I'd use is exciting. Some of the best games of football I've ever seen took place this season in the IFL, and some of the differences between the IFL and the AFL can be a little confusing at first, but the IFL rules just create such an exciting game, and to me, it adapts that arena football in the modern era of outdoor football that we've been seeing with a lot of read option, spread, those athletic quarterbacks becoming more impactful in the game. So it's kind of been like the evolution of the arena game in a way, and last word I'd use is growing. Steady growth over the past few years has really paid dividends for the league, especially this season, and it's continuing to get better and grow from here. Like you look at the past 4 or 5 years, San Diego was getting their footing, Tulsa was getting their footing. All these different teams were kind of getting their roots, and this season was the first season in the IFL's history that every team from the year before came back for the next season. So being able to have the same 16 teams come back and none of them leave, none of them fold, that just is a credit to the stability and the growth that they've had. And they're very intentional with who they accept into the league. They're very intentional with the expansion teams that they're launching. So I just think their leadership does a great job, and they continue to really crush it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying for a while, like as big as arena football fans as we are we have a saying, or a saying I've had, which is that the IFL is the gold standard right now for the indoor game. Look,
Absolutely.
the arena league will always have that name, that that iconography that people will probably always
Yep.
think of. But just right now, even I'll admit, the IFL is tier one indoor / arena football being played right now. I know that that's
Yeah.
gonna hurt some fans' ears, but it's the truth, and
That's the
they deserve
reality.
that credit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that was part of the AFL's downfall. Not to get too sidetracked with the AFL, but
No.
they tried to get too big too quick. They tried to match what the IFL has built up for the past 7, 8, 9 years. It's like there's a reason why it took that long.
Right.
Like you're not just going to flip the coin and be like, all right,
Right.
7 expansion teams, let's go. Like it takes time to get there. So yeah, I totally agree. IFL is setting the standard for how leagues should be run, and the steady growth that they've been doing is what people should be modeling their growth around for the future of any arena football league.
So, Trey, what are some of the teams that you would say are the biggest surprises of this past year? And maybe a couple of teams that were a little bit of a disappointment. Because there was a team or a couple of teams that we've said throughout the show over the course of the year, just like, wow, what happened to like Sioux Falls? Like they were always a powerhouse. And then this year, all of a sudden, it was just like, what happened? And for a while, the Rattlers kind of scared us. And the Rattlers seem to have finally steadied the ship, halfway through the season. But what are some of the teams, in your opinion, that were disappointments or surprises?
Yeah, so I think a couple teams were surprising. First one that comes to mind for me is Green Bay, the Green Bay Blizzard. In the preseason, I did a series of posts about comparing IFL teams to who I thought their NFL counterparts would be based on who they are as a franchise, how their season went last year. And my comparison for Green Bay was the Washington Commanders, being that they're a great football town. The team itself could never really get over the hump and take a step beyond 9-7, 10-6. But this year, they've been absolutely dominant. Their defense has been unbelievable at every level. Usually in the IFL, if a team has a good secondary, they have an okay defensive line. If a team has an incredible defensive line, the secondary has some question marks. But Green Bay's defense from top to bottom is unbelievable, and I would not be surprised to see at least 3 all IFL first teamers on that defense, just because they've been playing so good and they've been bullying teams, and there's a reason why they're 13-3 at this point in the season. Another team that was surprising is what you mentioned, Sioux Falls. This one could fall under the disappointments as well, but it was just so crazy to see the fall off. Like you said, they've been so dominant for so long, and in that same series of posts that I made in the preseason, I compared Sioux Falls Storm to the New England Patriots, right? An incredible run of championships, but their longtime head coach and longtime quarterback stepped away, and they entered an era of transition. And kind of just like the Patriots, they went from being contenders every year to having a not good season. I think they finished 3-13, last in the East, which is just shocking considering that we're used to seeing Sioux Falls make a run in the national championship every single year and just totally dominate the East. So to see them go from making an appearance last year to being last, it was just super surprising to see, because I think everyone figured they'd be a little fall off, but to go that far, it's shocking.
Yeah, and another team, I don't know how you feel about, but we were also kind of concerned because the Gunslingers jumping over from the National Arena League last season.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure they'd come in and because they had a really good time there in the NAL. They jump over to this league and they started out, what was it, 0-5 they started the season. They did not start off very hot, but they rounded out the year and they ended up being 8-8 by the end of the season. So I was happy to see that turnaround for them. So that surprised me a little bit after their slow start.
Yeah. Them and the Jacksonville Sharks both coming from the NAL. It's interesting to see the different seasons that they have. Like San Antonio, they came in, their offense was unbelievable all year. Jacksonville, they were the opposite. Their defense was unbelievable all year. Their offense was terrible. So it's funny to see two different teams from the same league have polar opposite problems adjusting to the IFL. So yeah, San Antonio was one of those teams where if they play unopposed, I'm dialed in, I'm watching, because I know I'm about to see 20 touchdowns scored by both teams combined, because San Antonio had the best offense in the league and the worst defense in the league. And so it was just like, what a combo. What a combo.
Sounds like the Jameis Winston of indoor football teams.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And, I mean, so You talked about some all IFL players being on that Green Bay defense. Are there some other
Yeah.
players around the league that we need to know about, that fans out there should know some of these awesome names, whether they're in the playoffs now or just guys that maybe we could potentially see either jump up to like a UFL or maybe even the NFL or even hop over to the Arena Football League?
Yeah, there's some players in the playoffs now that if you haven't watched the IFL, these are the guys you need to start with. And the first one I'll talk about is TJ Edwards, who's the quarterback for the Frisco Fighters. He's the MVP from 2023. This season, he had 35 passing touchdowns, 34 rushing touchdowns, over 700 rushing yards, and all that while missing 3.5 games due to injury. So he's able to put up 70 touchdowns, and he missed a quarter of the season for all intents and purposes. So he's just a dynamic player, and he's not going to go out there and throw for 250 yards a game, but it's not surprising anymore to see him score 6-7 touchdowns every single time, just because he is so dynamic as a runner. And the way they utilize him, they run a lot and make you defend the run, but then they'll pop it over your head for 25, 30-yard gains. So that really stretches the defense out, where you're saying, oh crap, I got to cover 30 yards downfield, but I also have to cover the line of scrimmage because this guy's going to toast us if we don't get him down immediately. So he is such a dynamic player. Another one, I mentioned the Green Bay defense, the defensive back Ravarius Rivers. He is so talented. He is tied for first in the league with 8 interceptions, and he has 92 total tackles on the season as well. So usually in the IFL, if a DB specifically is getting a lot of interceptions, he may not be interested in doing a lot of tackling. Like he'll come up and tap the guy after he's down. He's like, I did it. But then you have the opposite, where most players who rack up the tackles aren't as dynamic when it comes to intercepting the ball. But he does both. He's impactful on special teams too, whether it be kickoffs. He blocked a couple field goals earlier this year, so he's just incredibly dynamic, and he's one of those reasons that Green Bay has just been unbelievable so far this year. Couple other guys that are worth noting that are all in the playoffs is Jerome Johnson as well, quarterback from the Vegas Nighthawks. I think him and TJ are this MVP race for the IFL is going to be super interesting because a lot of the players have a pretty arguable list of pros and cons. And Jerome Johnson in particular, he has 1,900 passing yards, 43 passing touchdowns, 770 rushing yards, and 37 rushing touchdowns. So he has 80 touchdowns total, nearly 3,000 yards total. And when he is dialed in, this Vegas team is scary. Like they're able to drop 60 at any given moment. But the key words there, when he's dialed in. So at the beginning of the season, Vegas started 7-0. They looked unstoppable. There was a thought that passed the mind, like they could go 14-2, 15-1. Like this could be a dangerous team, but the wheels fell off a little bit for the offense. They were looking like they might miss the playoffs, but over the past quarter of the season, Jerome Johnson and that offense have really got it dialed back in, and they're looking like they did early on. So they're going to be a very dangerous team in the playoffs. And then staying on the West Coast, the Bay Area Panthers, you can't talk about Bay Area without mentioning their defense. And defensive back Antoine Kincaid, he is unbelievable. He's a player I would not be surprised to see him make a jump to the UFL, to the CFL, just because he is all over the place. When you look at the leaders of total tackles, he's at 101 total tackles. And he missed 4 games. He's leading the league in tackles as a DB, and he missed 4 games.
Dang.
That's incredible. Like he is all over the field, and he's got 13 pass breakups on the year. He's got a couple interceptions. Like they move him around everywhere, and they get him involved. And anytime you see a ball get thrown down the field, he's probably in a 5-10 yard radius of it. He's just everywhere, and he's a major reason why Bay Area has just been unbelievable and that number 1 seed.
So, Trey, the IFL playoffs start this Friday night, July 26th, with an Eastern Conference showdown between the number 4 seeded Quad City Steamwheelers traveling to Green Bay. And then Saturday, in the other Eastern matchup, it's the number 3 Massachusetts Pirates going to take on the number 2 Frisco Fighters. In the Western Conference, the number 3 seeded Arizona Rattlers will be traveling to the Vegas Nighthawks. Sunday, you've got the number 4 seeded San Diego Strike Force going up against the defending IFL champions, the number 1 seeded Bay Area Panthers. Do you see any of these lower seeded teams getting upset this weekend?
I think so. I think the one that has the best chance is the Arizona Rattlers. I think Arizona can go into Vegas, and I think on paper, I don't even know if this would be an upset because I think they're both 11-5. So I think just like I think Vegas has a slightly better conference record. That was what springboarded them above. But Arizona started the season 1-3, and like you mentioned at the beginning, you're like, uh-oh, it's not looking good for Arizona. But then they finished the season 10-2 and have just been on a tear. And the quarterback Dalton Snead and running back Shannon Brooks, they're a great combo. They are really great on the ground. And Snead won the IFL championship last year with Bay Area. So he's been there before. He knows what needs to be done. He was in an offense that was similar to this one where he had a running back, Justin Rankin, last season, who was all IFL and really, really good. And Shannon Brooks is the same way. Shannon Brooks missed some time, so I don't think he'll get all IFL this year. But when he gets the ball, he runs like somebody stole money from him. Like he runs angry. And Vegas is a dynamic team with Jerome Johnson, like I said, and they've really been turning around. But they've been hit with a ton of injuries towards the end of the year, and it's going to be an exciting game. But I would not be surprised to see Arizona win this one, just because they've been turning it on at the right time. Dalton Snead's been there before. Arizona is they're also due. Like they have a bad rep of choking in the playoffs, and I feel like this is the squad that could overcome that.
Well, Trey, here's the big question. Who do you think is going to be crowned the 2024 IFL champion?
I've been going back and forth on this because I think there are a couple teams that have a very strong case for it. But ultimately, I think what we're going to see in the IFL National Championship, I think we're going to see the Bay Area Panthers against the Frisco Fighters. Bay Area, the way that they play football is built to be the antagonist for the rest of the West, meaning that the rest of these Western Conference teams, they're willing to get into a 65-55 shootout. They welcome it. They're like, let's go. Let's do it. Bay Area is like, no. We're going to play tough physical defense. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to keep the ball away from your high-powered offense. So Bay Area is just built to be the antagonist for the rest of the West, and I think they have a really good shot of making it to the national championship again. I will say that Bay Area San Diego game is gonna, like, you have to be tuned into that. It's the old California clash. They've played each other 4 times this year, which is insane. That these two teams have played each other 4 times, and 3 of them have been instant classics, in my opinion. So the fact that they know each other very well, they're sick of each other. They're like, I have to play you again. No, this is it. So the 5th time's the charm. Is going to be a great game. But on the East, like I said, I really believe in Frisco. Similar to Arizona, they have been able to get into the playoffs the past couple of years, but they haven't been able to get over the hump to make it to the championship game. But I think this offense is just white hot to end the year. They're scoring 50+ points in each of the last 4 games, and TJ Edwards looks great. He just looks really comfortable, and he's starting to hit his stride, and they're getting healthy at the right time. They have a couple guys on short-term IR the past couple of weeks that, if everything goes well, will get activated for the playoffs, and they are just such a complete team, and other teams are getting bit by the injury bug. They're healing from the injury bug at the right time. So, I think Frisco's going to be great, and that matchup with Massachusetts is going to be super interesting because they played each other really close about a month and a half, 2 months ago. But I think Frisco's really going to roll over Massachusetts in this one, and same with Green Bay. I think Green Bay is a team that has the ability to get to the championship 100%. But I think Quad City is going to be a tougher test for them than people realize if Quad City can run the ball. Now on paper, Green Bay is like you look at the record, you look at the stats, you're like, Green Bay is going to absolutely kill Quad City, and that may be the case. But if Quad City can run the ball, like I said, with their running back Eddie Vander, get him at least 15 touches or so, they have a chance to control the pace of this game and not let it get out of hand. Green Bay has that number 1 defense, number 1 scoring defense, and number 1 passing defense, but they're 12th in rushing defense. So they have a little bit of a weakness in that defense. So where teams have faltered against Green Bay is they fall behind early and they have to pass. Well, guess what? That secondary is one of the best in the league. Good luck. So if they can control the pace, keep it close, not be forced into situations where they have to pass, they could get a little bit of a scare. But I think we're going to see Green Bay and Frisco in the Eastern Conference, and then Arizona in the Bay Area in the West. But it's going to be a thrilling playoffs. I'm super excited to see the matchups and all the storylines that develop.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually watching some games this weekend. I mean, we try to fit in some CFL, but now with no arena to worry about. I'm definitely going to be locked in to some of these playoff games because I mean, shoot, there's been so many great highlights, and I think, what was it, Green Bay and Quad City played a couple games this year. I'm pretty sure I've seen some highlights from those games, and those look like some pretty high-scoring games, or at least some pretty entertaining games. So I'm looking forward to these matchups for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
All right, well, thanks everybody for watching. We want to thank Trey from Off the Wall for setting aside some time to talk with us today. Trey, tell people where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, X/Twitter, and TikTok. You can find me at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, on all of those. Again, Off the Wall FB, and then YouTube as well. Post a weekly podcast and looking to get into some other stuff in the off season. Try to fill some of the time that would have been dedicated to covering some of these games. Have some ideas in the works, but yeah, we're growing this thing as much as we can, and it's been a blast so far. And I really appreciate you guys sending the invite over, and being able to chop it up with you guys has been great, and looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. Clearly, I mean, very knowledgeable, pulling out so many stats. This is exactly why I hoped you'd say yes, because I feel smarter just listening to you about the IFL now. So I think I am very prepared now to watch some IFL football this weekend.
I told you I get fired up, and it becomes my personality. So I'm all in on the IFL. I love it.
Well, thanks again for joining us, and we just love seeing your channel grow. Hopefully, it continues growing because you got some good stuff over there. A lot of great interviews and stuff like we talked before we hit record. You did a great interview with Anthony Carter over from Arena Insider. People should go over there and check out that video. It's so good. Trey, you got such a good presence on the mic. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's starting off. I was like, do people want to hear me? I don't know if people want to hear what I got to say, and I'm like, you're going to hear what I got to say.
There you go. That's how you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. You can find the world of football on various social media platforms. They're all in the descriptions down below in this video. Please take a moment to like and subscribe our channel if you enjoyed this video. Once again, we'd like to thank Trey for stopping by. And until next time, I'm Randy Snow.
And I'm Adam Snow.
And we'll see you soon.